Let's just call it what it was, an excuse. When Baldur's Gate 3 blew up, some studios didn't celebrate it, they panicked. Suddenly, years of half-finished launches and cash-grab live services needed defending. So they called it a fluke, a miracle, like Larian just stumbled into greatness by accident, and nobody else should be expected to ever match those standards. But the real anomaly wasn't Larian's success, it's how long the industry's been gaslighting players into accepting mediocrity as the norm. Because while this lot were out here calling BG3 a fluke, someone inside the AAA machine was paying attention. Not a YouTuber, not a streamer, Mark Rubin, executive producer during Call of Duty's Modern Warfare peak. A guy who sat in on the monetization meetings, heard the pitch decks where player engagement really just means psychological manipulation, and now he's just said what we've all been screaming. Maybe Larian didn't get lucky. Maybe the rest of the industry just got lazy. Rubin's recent tweet wasn't vague, he called it like it is. Studios like Activision and yes, Call of Duty itself are focused entirely on how to squeeze the most money out of players. Not how to make the best game, just how to maximize return on investment. He even name-dropped the scummy tactics at play. FOMO marketing, engagement optimized matchmaking, that perfect little formula where the game isn't designed to be fair or fun, just sticky enough to keep you spending. But the reality is the fix isn't complex, it's just one most of them won't touch, because it means putting the player first instead of the profit margin. Be player centric, less metrics, more quality, better design, better gameplay and fewer tricks. And then he just drops the line that should be printed on every whiteboard in every AAA studio, still pretending to care about the players. Be more like Larian, less like Activision. Now if you're an exec, that sounds like heresy, but to everybody else, that's just common sense. Larian didn't need a $300 million ad budget. They didn't ship a skeleton and promise to finish it later. They just built a full game, a complete experience. And when it launched, they didn't turn it into a battle pass simulator disguised as a game. They fixed bugs, added content, gave us new endings, proper epilogues, and actual improvements. Because they respect the player. They made a game good enough to stand on its own. I remember my first playthrough, like it was yesterday, thinking how polished everything felt, how deep the mechanics are, like it was something totally impossible from a new release. That shouldn't be a surprise in 2023, and yet it was. That's the level we're dealing with. A complete game at launch feels like a gift from above. And right after this tweet, right on cue, EA shows up to remind us how allergic AAA studios are to that idea. Hundreds of layoffs made, around 100 from Respawn alone, and just for extra flavour, they cancelled the Titanfall universe project, one of the only things they had left that people actually cared about. And why the cuts? Well, it's simple. The spreadsheet just said no. Revenue forecasts weren't met, so the developers, the people who actually make the games, get culled. Not the execs, not the leadership who approve the terrible decisions, just the workers, because in this system, they're not creators, they're just cost centers, disposable assets. And naturally, their press release is written in corporate necrospeak. Strategic changes, unlocking growth, aligning teams, and that just translates to you're fired, so please take your passion and talent elsewhere so we can continue selling the illusion of progress. But honestly, this has just become the default playbook. Devs pour themselves into these games, endure crutch, delays, studio politics, only to get blindsided the second the quarterly numbers wobble. And meanwhile, the people who greenlight these Frankenstein projects just walk away with stock options and fresh LinkedIn posts about being open to new opportunities. It's like watching a car crash happen in slow motion. Like, what happened to leadership? What happened to actually protecting the teams that make these games possible? The foundational knowledge. It's like they forgot the product is the people. And here's where they'd come in with some usual excuse about refocusing core priorities. But what they won't say is that Titanfall wasn't cut because it was bad. It was more likely cut because it didn't fit the revenue model. Just earlier this year, a GDC report dropped saying 1 in 10 game developers were laid off in 2024. 1 in 10. That's not market correction. That's structural rot. That's the result of leadership that doesn't understand or care about the product that it sells. These aren't just developers being cut. These are the same people who stayed late, fixed bugs, polished systems, and fought for quality while leadership obsessed over KPIs. And when the profits dip, they're the first to go, quietly, invisibly, like they never even mattered. It's the same cycle every time, except now people are finally paying attention. And Larian calls that. So when Ruben says be more like Larian, he's not making a suggestion, he's pointing a spotlight at the contradiction everyone pretends not to see. One studio releases a game that respects the player and ends up dominating the conversation. The others are still busy fine-tuning storefront mechanics while cutting QA. And what they don't want us to realise is Larian didn't do anything radical. They didn't reinvent the wheel, they just prioritised things that AAA abandoned: polish, player feedback, complete content at launch, and the result wasn't just a financial success, it was cultural dominance. That kind of success terrifies execs because it resets expectations. It ruins the illusion that cutting corners is the only path to profitability. So instead they just try and spin BG3 as a fluke, as if player trust, goodwill and quality are some mystical combination that can't be planned for. That lie buys them another quarter of live service extension, another month of silence about the layoffs, another investor call where they pretend the latest reboot isn't just Destiny with a different hat. But it's not just the devs that are paying the price, it's us. We've been trained to expect broken launches, to wait 6 months for the real game to show up, to see news of studio closures or layoffs and shrug because, well, that's just how it is. And no, that's not the industry, that's just the excuse they sold us, wrapped in a cinematic trailer and 17 pre-order bonuses. That's how it is because we've normalized it. Because every time someone says, well, it's a live service game, what do we expect? Those execs get to push that line a little further. And every time a BG3 shows up and does it right, the PR machine scrambles to downplay it as quickly as possible. The truth is, Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't just a good RPG, it was a high voltage middle finger to everything AAA studios told us was necessary. That we have to go live service, that we have to cut features for launch windows, that players won't care if it's broken as long as the trailer hits. But we did care, and we showed up and we stuck around because Larian treated us like people, not like revenue sources, because BG3 respected our time and our intelligence, because it was designed to be played, not milked. It wasn't magic, it was priorities. So let's just drop that whole Larian anomaly narrative. It's not just false, it's cowardly. It's a smokescreen to protect bad habits and corporate bloat. Because if Larian isn't an anomaly, then the rest of the industry has to explain why they're not even trying. The bar's been raised, and instead of rising with it, most of AAA would rather try to convince you the bar just doesn't exist. And let's not just pretend this is a Larian thing, there's other studios doing the right thing. Smaller studios making great games without loot boxes, without storefronts, without turning engagement into a currency. Games like Clair Obscur, for example, prove that we don't need a multi-billion-dollar budget to raise the bar. They just need a vision and a refusal to treat the audience like morons. So yeah, the next time some exec tries to tell you that Baldur's Gate 3 was an excuse, remember what that actually means. It just means they saw how high the bar could go and they're scared shitless we'll start expecting it. And if you're still watching, odds are you're one of the people who actually still cares. Good, me too. Hit like, subscribe, and more importantly, don't stop demanding better. Because if we settle for this, then it's all we're ever gonna get.